Now, there were a lot of other issues that came up at last night's debate. The topic of immigration certainly took up a bit of time. And Biden and Donald Trump had a back and forth about the family separation. Obviously, big news once again with the revelation that over 500 kids still haven't been able to be reunited with their families. The expectation is that many or most or all never will be reunited. And so Donald Trump again did his thing where he starts whining and complaining at both sides and pretending that somehow this is actually a bigger problem for Joe Biden. And so here's Joe Biden talking about the current problem of family separation.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough, we're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over, their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
So, yeah, because Trump, when asked about this, kept saying they're brought by criminals, they're brought by racists, they're brought by coyotes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you and Stephen Miller telling ICE, the border patrol, all of that, specifically to take families that are whole units and tear them apart. That's what you did. This isn't about random unaccompanied kids. That is its own set of problems. We're talking about you making the choice, the purposeful, by design, cruel choice to separate families that are together when they come in, to send a signal to countries, that potentially people might come into our country from, that it's just not worth the trouble, that it's too scary, too dangerous. That's what you did. And Biden, I thought, there were a number of times where I thought Biden's responses weren't strong enough, but I thought that was a pointing out how awful that policy has been. I thought was one of the good points.
It's crazy. Like imagine that scene in The Godfather, Godfather 2, where Michael appears in America. They come to shore, and he's there with his parents at the border, and then someone just pulls them apart and sends them completely different places. Like, what they don't understand is like we as a nation have romanticized the immigration experiences of every other kind of refugee except this one. And it's utterly race driven and it is utterly racist. And then Trump's response in the debate was actually they're pretty clean, these cages. That's his response. That's him saying yes, I am taking families apart. And there's still over 500 parents who don't know where their kids are, can't be reunited, have been lost. Those are real human lives. And Biden's part of the Obama administration. So they sent a lot of people home. And I would argue that they sent too many people home. But all Biden's saying is like, at least we didn't tear families apart. It's nuts.
Yeah,
it's absolutely nuts. And Trump thinks it's a win because his cages are clean.
Well, the way that he talked about it, for some smooth-brained people, I think it's enough both sidesing that it's a get out of thinking free card. And by the way, as you just said, if you want to criticize the Obama administration's immigration policy, I think that is one of the most ripe areas for criticism. But that doesn't mean that any random criticism actually makes sense or is true. And the stuff that Donald Trump was saying just doesn't make sense. He kept saying, it's not a problem that I was forcibly separating families and putting kids in cages. Who made the cages? Who made the cages? Now, that is a shred of truth, as the best lies and deceptions do. Many of these sorts of facilities were set up under the Obama administration. It's a little bit more difficult to say that Biden specifically is responsible for that, but he was part of that administration. That's fine, that's fair. What you do need to understand though, is that there was a drastic uptick in people crossing the border at a very specific point in time that was not anticipated, thus creating these facilities in the short term. Now, thankfully, courts stepped in and said, you can't hold people in these sorts of conditions, so they stopped doing it, okay? Now, any family, even temporarily being separated or being kept whole in cages like that is 100% unacceptable and shouldn't be allowed. But creating sort of emergency housing that you then would log people and then allow them to go out and come back to be processed is very different than saying, I want you to rip babies out of their mother's arms specifically to send a message that we are a cruel country that you don't want to come into. It's just not the same. And it doesn't make sense, by the way. Even if it was true, even if Biden was like saying under the Obama administration, I want these kids in cages, let's say that's true. You've been president for years now. Why didn't you shut him down? What's the point of you saying who built the cages if you staffed the cages? It's just such a stupid both sidesing. It's just kicking up dirt. That's all it is, which was honestly what a big portion of this debate I think was about a number of issues.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.